I'm going to let you in on something. Before I had this program, before I trained to become a dream life coach, before I realized the power of my dreams, I was miserable. Not all the time, mind you. I mean, I did have good things going on in my life, but I let myself be overwhelmed by the things that weren't working. I used to beat myself up all the time for things I did wrong, no matter how trivial they were. I even beat myself up for things that I didn't do, blaming myself for things that happened to me or my family or my business that in reality had nothing to do with me. What turned this around for me was the understanding that I was living my life based on the stories I told myself, that I didn't deserve to be happy, that I was never good enough, even that I was invisible. When I realized that these were stories and not facts, I started on the road to self awareness and self love that I'm still on today. Believe me, I'm not the only one who's had to deal with emotional pain and lack of self esteem. Fortunately, there are people with solutions out there, and my guest, Lorna Stell, is one of them. Lorna is an intuitive healing guide who helps her clients break free from self loathing and transform their sense of self. Welcome to the Dream Power Show, Lorna.
Hey.
Lorna, we all know the proverbial saying, you are what you eat. Would you also agree that we are what we think?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Yeah, in my experience, and really too, what you think becomes your beliefs. Beliefs are just thoughts you think over and over. And so I find those really affect the health of the body and really all layers of us too.
Mm. Well, Lorna, you call yourself an intuitive healing guide. What exactly does that mean?
Yeah, so the basis of that comes from my belief that we all have the power to heal ourselves. And so, granted, there are tons of amazing healers out in the world, and their work is absolutely really essential in our world on planet Earth. But there are these like self-healing powers that a lot of us have, and many of us don't really believe we have that capability and don't know how to tap into it. So yeah, so my work as a intuitive healing guide is basically to help people tap into their own intuition or their own divine knowing so that they can learn how to heal themselves. So I'm guiding people through that process.
What sorts of problems can be helped by this?
At a certain point in my life, I had a whole list of chronic symptoms I was dealing with and diagnoses. And after doing some digging with that and some self exploration and just getting curious about what was going on with me, I found that part of the roots of what was happening in my body was this really deep and very old, going back into childhood experience of self loathing and self judgment. And so, yeah, so to me, again, like all layers of us as people are really connected. And yeah, it's just all like this kind of puzzle that all fits together. And so, yeah, so I primarily work with people who are energy sensitive. A lot of them are empaths, and they are dealing with these kind of nebulous chronic symptoms in their body and haven't really been able to get answers in many places. And so the work that I do is really in healing from the inside out. So we look at your deepest emotional pains, especially, that self loathing and self judgment. And once we can start to bring healing to that and new life there, the body really responds beautifully to that.
Okay, well, let's get back to your story for a second. What kinds of chronic illnesses were you suffering from, and how were you able to heal yourself?
Yeah, so the big one that definitely affected every area of my life was chronic fatigue syndrome. And on top of that, I was dealing with severe acid reflux, which used to wake me up at night. And I would have chronic ulcers that were extremely painful, and chronic sinus infections. Um, and also, what's really common for a lot of other people too is anxiety and depression. And I add to that list as well, that self-loathing that I help people with too. Um, so that was those are the areas where I've seen a lot of healing in my life. And what happened was just, yeah, learning how to connect inward with this really deep part of myself that I see as my connection to the divine as well. So that intuitive connection really helped me to see the truth of who I am, which is, what's true for all of us, which is, we're love, basically. We're love in like physical form. And so being able to see through, as you kind of alluded to, the stories we tell about ourselves, like, I'm not good enough. And I used to say that I'm a waste of space. So taking those stories and bringing healing to them really allowed my body to just free up all of this energy that I was kind of like damming back behind these stories that really weren't even true about myself.
Mm. Well, I'm just curious because you talk about things like acid reflux or chronic fatigue syndrome. That are things that if most people have them, they'd call up their doctor and go through that whole process. Is there a room for medicine, as we call medicine, in this, or do you think that all illnesses are just self-induced?
Oh, sure. Yeah, so I think the unique thing within my work is I will never tell someone to not see their doctor. Yeah, I'm not here to say that, all those years of medical training that they go through are not worth anything. They definitely are. Um, and this is kind of just how I see us as beings and us within our bodies, as everything is connected. So your physical health, your beliefs and thoughts, your emotions, your memories, your ancestral heritage, it's all connected. So, the interesting thing about Western medicine is they know the body so well in many ways, but they can't talk to you about how you're feeling or, a really difficult memory you have from childhood. And so, sometimes what the body really needs is a combination of things to help it heal. But um, I, within my experience of my chronic symptoms, I started coming to this work because I wasn't really getting that much help from doctors. Like, and I've had amazing doctors that I love, but they couldn't really, like, they ran out of answers for me essentially. So I had to do my own exploration.
Mm. Okay, you talked about self-loathing, and that was a big factor in my own life. Is when I came to realize that I actually didn't love myself, that was a great awakening. And I didn't have physical illnesses, but it was more of mental stress and bouts of depression and just feeling feeling bad as opposed to being physically ill. That was at the root of my situation. But would you say that self-loathing was like the main cause of chronic illness?
Um, so I would say it's a part of the root cause for me in particular. So the interesting thing about my work is it comes from uh, this basic tenet that if I'm experiencing this, I must not be the only one. And a lot of us, when we're dealing with chronic symptoms, like, we feel so isolated, and that's part of what can add to that depression as well. But at a certain point, I went, I must not be the only person dealing with this. So it may not be the root cause for all the billions of people on planet Earth, but it certainly was for me. And I've met so many other people who really resonate with that. So I can't ignore the evidence.
Mhm. Well, when you're dealing with your clients, what issues are the causes of their illnesses?
Yeah, so yeah, it really comes from, again, just in my experience, kind of having a disconnection from the truth. And when I say the truth, it's like the grand truth, like universal truth, which is, that really, like, we're not bad, we're not inherently evil, in my opinion. And we have value because we exist, and we have worth because we exist. And so, like that root of self-loathing kind of comes from, well, I'm just inherently unworthy and I can't do anything about it. And so shifting that belief, um, and it really helps to heal in community as well. And so being able to just have a conversation with someone about, um, this story you've been telling yourself over and over, like, what if it wasn't true? So that really opens a lot of things up.
Mm. So, what are some of the methods you use to help guide your clients to their own healing?
Yeah. So, what's really fun is I teach these what I call intuitive healing methods, which are I'm basically taking my life experience, what has worked for me, and I teach it in these simple, tangible methods for people. So, um, we start with three things. So, the foundation is connecting with your intuition. And I personally love to do this through yoga, meditation, and journaling. And so, there are different flavors of that. And then healing method number two is being with animals, particularly for me, being with cats, because they're my soul animal. And number three is creative expression. And so for me, again, in particular, that is singing. So for other people, it could be dancing, drawing, painting, doing cartwheels. But yeah, it's part of the root of this is kind of connecting with that inner child part of us, and bringing in a lot of fresh energy and creative energy.
How difficult is it to really stay focused in the present? Because it seems like your minds are racing all the time, and we're either thinking about the things we haven't done, or regrets about things we haven't done, or worrying about what's going to happen in the future. How do we focus and stay on the present besides animals?
Yeah. Yeah, well, you're right. It is a challenge. So I find connecting with intuition is a really big part of it. And for me, it's a daily practice. Like I'm always deepening this for myself as well. And so when I talk about the intuition too, it has its own voice, kind of like if you know the voice of your inner critic, you also have the voice of your intuition. And it is always in the present, it is always at peace, it's always unconditionally loving. And so once you start to feel that voice in your body and understand what it sounds like, you start to be able to connect with it really at any time. And so it's kind of a skill or a muscle a little bit that you can strengthen. And I find just incorporating that into my life has been a big part of it.
Mhm. Do you ever use dreaming? Is
Yes, I love interpreting my own dreams intuitively and using that as a way to understand, the symbols within my consciousness and what messages I need to know for that day. So I really enjoy that.
Could you walk me through, what might be a typical session with a client and how you guide them?
As an example, one thing we can do is just kind of go through a guided meditation together. Um, and so this is where they can learn how to connect with the voice of their intuition. So um, essentially, I kind of play the role of the mind in a way, the thinking mind, and they can just sink into that relaxed body, relaxed mind place. And and I would have some context for what they want clarity on, but yeah, so I can ask them questions like, what do I need to know about this pain in my neck today? What do I need to know about this rash on my skin? And, do I need to do anything about that right now? There's all kinds of questions, but it becomes a conversation where I can ask them questions, kind of, again, playing the role. So asking in the form of I. And all they're doing is listening. So they just listen for the answer. And it comes usually from a gut place or a heart place. And so all they have to do is just hear the questions and tap into that place in their body and speak what they hear. And it's a very clarifying and very relaxing experience. So that's one thing we can do together. Um, and yeah, additionally, we can do almost like intuitive health coaching together. So there are times when we're just having conversations about, what's going on in your life and what are the challenges, and giving them little tools to work with that they can use daily throughout their life too.
Just how can people find out more about you and your services?
Yeah, so my website is lornastellintuitive.com. I am on Instagram at Lorna Stell, and on Facebook, you can join my Facebook group, which is called Intuitive Healing for Empaths and HSPs with Chronic Symptoms. We're a very lively group over there.
We've been speaking with intuitive healing guide Lorna Stell.